Hello, everyone. This is Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School. And tonight we'll go for a second run of Puzzle Streak. As we see here, the top score that I've achieved is 108. We will try to break that right here. So we'll go up to the top, we'll hit Puzzle Streak, and we shall start. So this time we'll start at 0. Last time we started at 56. So we'll get right into it. Now, of course, we always go through the checks, captures, and threats on every single puzzle. Here we notice Queen B2 check, which incidentally will also attack the rook and force King to D1. Let's look at some other moves. Let's see, we don't have any other checks. We've got one capture here, one capture here, one capture here. All those look insane. Queen B2, Rook C2, Queen takes B1, wins a piece. Queen B2, King D1. Rook H1. Wow, the first one right off the bat is not immediately apparent. Normally, they're supposed to, as it says over here, solve progressively harder puzzles and build a win streak. There is no clock, so take your time. So that's funny. I was expecting to solve a lot of these puzzles right out of the gate. All right, so that's not going to happen. Well, you don't see any other move than Queen to B2. That is a tactic. Rook's not really participating. Bishop's not participating. So I'm just going to go Queen B2 and see how he intends to defend this check. Check. And he intends to give up the rook. So he at least could have tried King D1, which is why I had to think about this move. Knight to D2 is just simply take the rook. So that's a strange way to start this puzzle session off. Okay, so here we notice checks. Queen takes H4 is mate right away. So we don't have to think too much longer than that. Here, this is a check and a capture, and this also wins the rook. So let's just do that. I don't think there's anything better. Check and take. So that's simple. Our turn for black. So we're black, we're going this way. Okay, so if we take the rook, they will promote. And then we can check them. Okay, so this is a case where we don't look for checks because we don't have a good one. But here on the capture, when we capture and they promote, we'll be able to play rook to F8 check, pick up the queen, and then promote the pawns. So we will just simply capture, check them, take them, and that's it. All right, let's see. Here we can take a bishop, but our queen is hanging. So we have a check, we have a check, we have a check. This check, incidentally, also allows us time to take a bishop on E2. Let's see, do we have anything better just to check? No, so we'll just simply take and take. All right. This one is a check. We use the checks, and this one we find the very quick Queen C6, which forks the bishop. So check and take. This one we have one check and a capture, and it also wins the bishop, probably amongst other things. We also have bishop G6 check, which incidentally wins this exchange. Probably that's not the best way, though. Probably winning the bishop for nothing is better. So let's check them and take them. Yep, simple and good. This one, it looks like a really bad King's Gambit. Normally, in King's Gambit structures, if the F-pawn captures too quickly, then the usual answer, the usual punishment for that move is Queen H4 check, followed by Queen takes E4 check. And I don't think there's anything better. So let's go for that. Check, check, and that picks up the rook. White's going to get pawn takes check, but I believe we just take the rook here. Let's take the rook. Yes. All right, let's see. We've got one check here, which might be useful in disco situations, but not at this moment. So the checks do not work. We have bishop takes E7, which can only be met by knight takes E7 and then bishop H7 picks up the exchange on d8. So that's a worthwhile combination. There's also rook takes d5. And if rook takes, then bishop takes. And if pawn takes, then bishop takes. That picks up 2 pieces for the rook, which isn't bad, but probably not as good as just simply exchanging here and picking up the exchange, I would guess. The rooks aren't going to get forked at the end. At the end of that combination, if knight c6 was possible, that would have forked both rooks, and it would have been a worthwhile combination. But without that, I don't think we could do it. So let's go for that one. Be there, be there. Yes. And then we check them, and then we take them, and that's it. All right. Okay, so best move for white. We've got a couple checks. Those just give up the queen. Let's see, captures, same thing. So we have to look for threats. Well, let's see. Knight f7 makes a big threat of queen h8. Any counterattack by black, I think, is just going to be met by king to g3, and that will be the end of the checks. So if we go for the threat of knight f7, that means that we'll have to play g5 to make some room to run. Let's see. Knight f7, let's see. Actually, it might be on knight f7, it might be good for black to actually flick in queen to d1, because on king to g3, that will block the g pawn from participating in any sort of, because we can anticipate the king starting to float around in outer space. And if we could play g4, it might add some oomph to any mating attack here. Let's see. Let's see. Knight f7, g5, queen h8, king g6, knight e5. Well, let's see. And if we flick in the check, then we would be standing here. So that. Well, that might not matter, actually, because we could put the queen on e8 and guard both of these squares, whether the king's here or not. So knight f7, queen d1, king g3, g5, queen h8, king g6, knight e5 check. And if they go to the f file, then I believe queen f8 is checkmate, or close to. Well, maybe not. If king f5, queen f7, king e4, and we can't go queen to f3 because there's a queen here. Wow, so it's a big mess there. Knight f7, queen d1, king g3, pawn g5, queen h8, king g6, knight e5. And if it goes to h5, then queen e8 should be winning. If they go to f6, then queen f8 is mate. If queen to f5, or a king to f5, then queen h7. And then and then they won't be able to reach e4. So I think that is a forced mating attack. All right, let's go for that. Knight f7. Be there, be there, be there. Yes. Oh, he sacks the rook. Okay, so I wasn't anticipating that. So let's just take the rook. Wow, okay. Hardcore analysis for no reason. All right. Let's see. We have no checks. Captures are largely meaningless. So that means threats. Here we have knight c6 as a threat with a fork. And I guess the queen cannot stay on the bishop. e7 and d6 are taken up. So that looks like it wins a piece. So that should be simple. Be there. Yep. Take. Good. Knight f2. So we're under attack here. Okay. So this means we have to have something really good in return. So check. So here we have a check and a capture. Which looks okay. No other checks. I got a capture here, which looks bad. So only queen e6 looks interesting. So queen e6, we assume king h8, and then what? Just simply knight f7, rook takes f7, queen takes f7, and just allow the discovery. Black will be able to pick up one pawn, perhaps nothing more. Queen takes e6, king h8. We have anything better? I don't know. It doesn't look that way. I'm going to go for it. Let's do it. Queen e6. Yes. Okay. So knight f7 right away. It's really the only way to slow down any knight discoveries is to check them ourselves. I don't think we have anything better. So let's go for it. Check. And we have nothing better. Well, that was it. A lot harder than I thought. Or a lot easier than I thought, rather. Okay, so let's see. Check here, check here, check here. All those are bad. We have a check here, which looks a little bit better. And nothing more. Captures, we have one here and nothing more. So we either check them or we threaten them. Now, when it comes to threats, it looks as though the rook on d8 is weak. So possibly we'll have some sort of potential attack on the rook. Let's see. Let's look at the check first, though. Queen to e5. If queen f6, then rook h7, followed by rook h6 will win the queen. So that's easy to see. If pawn f6, then queen e7, in fact, does win the rook. If the king moves, then rook h8 is mate. So that's simple. Check. And then here we go, the classic check, followed by the distraction tactic, winning the queen. All right. This one looks like if we just look at our checks, we win easily. And now here, of course, it looks like we can take the queen, which is all very well and good, except for the fact that queen takes h2, rook takes h2, rook takes h2 is checkmate. So we just check them and mate him. This is another classic one. This one where we actually have we have two checks, but the one on f2 is the one that matters most. Queen takes f2, rook takes f2, rook to e1 check leads to a very simple mate. Check, check, checkmate. This is another distraction tactic. Here, the queens are attacking each other, but a check and a capture wins the queen. We do have to watch out for the fact that we are back rank mated, but at the very least, we can win the queen with check. And that'll be the solution. Okay, so here we have a rook and pawn endgame. We can capture and check, and we have no other checks, no other captures. And threats, we really only have one in the form of our pass c pawn. So I suppose we have a secondary threat of possibly if we have enough time to get our king into g3 and start taking all these pawns. So, all right. Well, let's see. If we simply move our rook away, then white will have a whole ton of options. And that's usually not a good way to solve puzzles. Usually you have to try to make forcing moves. Like, for example, if I took my rook and went to c1, white has every move in the book. You know, king d3, king e3, rook to a2, rook b2, rook check, whatever. I mean, there's just like a whole bunch of options. So my guess is that we actually have to take. And then after takes, it'll be a question of what threat can black make. I see here that black can make this go king to e5 with two threats. One of them is to grab opposition, and the other is to invade. So I would assume that invading is more of a threat. So rook takes, king e5, g3, making a barrier. which the king cannot approach with any of these squares. And then we can play king to d4. And this will give us the outside pass pawn and also the ability to play king to e3 when the king abandons it. And then we can just chomp away. So I think that's the answer. Be there, be there, be there. Yes, and then go king e5 probably. And that's the interesting part about this puzzle is that I think it requires a very precise move. Let's say it's this one. Come on, be there. Yes, and that was that. All right, so this is right out of an opening. What opening? The orangutan opening, and then it turned into something like a something symmetrical Englishy, something like that eventually. All right, so it's black to move. Okay, so there is no checks. One capture here, one capture here. Both of those are useless. Well, maybe DC isn't useless. Actually, DC doesn't even look that bad as a capture. That's probably not the tactic, though. Let's see. Threats. Well, let's see. We got a bishop on B2 that can be threatened. Well, what else can be threatened? D4 threatens D3, I suppose. This feels like it's a book, like a book trap type of thing. I don't know this book, though. I've never read this book. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting there looking at it. Oh, that was silly. Yeah, white actually had a move there. So that wasn't the actual position. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so this makes it a lot easier. So that idea with trying to get the pawn to d3 and trap the bishop now has more oomph when there's a knight sitting here on c3. So I guess this puzzle comes with a nice little lesson that normal development isn't always good. Sometimes it actually misplaces the pieces and allows combinations. So d4 has to be the answer. And whether white takes or not, d3 is going to win a piece. So let's just go for that. Be there, be there. Yes. And then we take once and that's it. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That was, sorry about that, guys. Okay. Let's, in fact, here, let's do a quick one here and speed up our life. Let's see. I think we got another quick one here. Let's take once. Let's take twice. And that was mate. This one, let's check once, check twice, take once. See, like I said, you just, this one is check once, take once. So you guys can see that this can be quite easy if you just simply look at checks, captures, threats. Let's see. So you got a check here. That doesn't work. So you got some captures here. Rook takes looks interesting. Skewering all of this. Also distracting the queen away from G2 when we take on E1. So I believe the answer is rook takes E4. And then he, oh, okay. So now we have a desperado tactic. Can we do something with the queen before we take the queen? Can we take the queen and when they capture, we take the rook for free? That looks pretty good too. This one would be mate in one if this knight weren't here. Black's got two queens and two rooks. Wow, that looks pretty good. Oh, this is very simple. We find the best check, and the best check is take on G6, take on, make sure G7 isn't protected, and then we take. So that was a very lucky mate. Let's see. We can capture a queen. We could capture a rook. We have no checks. Let's see, capturing the queen threatens rook to d8. It also wins a queen. So that seems logical and good. And then we check them and wreck them. There we go. And let's see, rook f8 doesn't work, but rook c8 does. Yes. Okay. This is a very classic one. This is a distract a queen to e1 and then check him on f3, winning in exchange. So the way we do that is sack the queen, check him, take him. All right. Let's see. We have a check here, which doesn't work. We have a check here. Whoops, check here, which looks largely unimportant. Let's see. Almost have rook takes b3. Rook takes b3, rook takes b3, queen takes c4. Rook c3, dc, queen c4, cb, followed by taking the queen. Wow, that actually might have been it. I was wondering if this almost worked. So rook takes b3 threatens queen takes c4 with some sort of ongoing assault on the king, which it looks really drafty. I don't see anything else. Let's see. The only other threat is rook e8, but the queen can go anywhere, pretty much. So that doesn't work. So rook takes b3 looks the most threatening because rook takes b3 picks up a pawn and threatens queen takes c4. So that looks really good. So let's do that. Be there, be there. Yes. Check. Okay, so the idea here was to take the rook, and then when they capture the queen, we throw in CB check, and then pick up the queen, which will win a piece. So that was the idea. Let's see if that works. Yes, beautiful. This looks like another check capture. So rook takes f7, and if king g8, queen g6 mate. If rook takes, then queen g6 check, followed by queen f7 is also mate. So that's pretty simple. Check, check, mate. Let's see. No checks. Let's see. We have a capture here. We have a capture here. And that is it. Threats. Okay, well, there's a rook that's hanging. There's a knight that's hanging. So one way to take advantage of that would be queen d4. However, knight f3. And then we could remove the guard. Bling blang. We got a fork and a room. So remove a fork guard, I guess, would be the name of that tactic. Yeah, rook e4 is met by knight e4, and the queen can't defend both. So I would assume queen d4. Be there, be there, be there. Yes, and then we remove the guard. Yes, simple and good. This is another classic tactic. This is what happens when there is something pinning a knight, but there's also something for the knight to attack. And when the bishop is in the way, the answer here is knight takes d5. And if the bishop takes the bishop, you actually capture back with the attacked knight on e7, and that wins a piece for black. This comes up in many different openings. So we actually capture here, capture like this, which wins. That's an oldie but a goldie. All right, so an endgame one. So this will require some precision. Knight c3 was played, so this allows some sort of tactic. All right, so we have one check here, which is almost useless, except for the fact that I think that the solution actually has something to do with this bishop, which is actually to capture, which is the only thing we can capture. But it might be a very good. Well, it looks like a very good one. This is the pawn breakthrough. When pawn captures bishop, we just play h6. And I don't think any of the pieces, even if they retreat, can get them. Knight to d5, h7, knight f6, queen. If h6, king to e7, h7, king f7, queen. So I think the answer is bishop takes g5, and in which case black cannot capture back. But white will have 2-1 on the king's side. And also, if they don't capture back, white's just going to take on h6 too, and just be 2 pawns up. I suppose that black could play knight to b1 and go after the a pawn, but these pawns are very quick. So I assume And there is no check, so I assume this and go, and that's that. Okay, so we're under attack. So whatever we do has to be really good, because this is some sort of winning attack. It looks. Oh, haha. So we don't. Okay, so we got a check on B7, which is meaningless. We have a capture on B6, which I think is meaningless. We have a capture on C5, which is not good. We have a capture on F7, which is almost good, except it can take. But when it comes to threats, however, we have a nice one, which is blammo, which wins the queen. This was pinning the queen to the king. Simple and good. Okay, no checks. We got a capture here. We have a capture here. We have no other captures. Threats. Well, okay, since the queen is in the middle, generally speaking, we get a variety of threats with the queen in the middle. So that's one good. I mean, like for example, we could play knight to C3. We could play. You know, actually, I mean, that as a threat move, but probably I don't know if we're going after this one. This doesn't seem right. Oh, you know what? We do have skewer potential though. And the only way to do that is to clear the bishop out of the way. So for example, bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop, rook A E1, and the queen can give a check and force the queens off the board, but the bishop is hanging at the end of that combo. And that will win the bishop, I think. I don't think there's any real other thing that we could do. So let's try that. Take. Let's do this one. And not the other rook, because the other rook is defending F4. So he gets to take, but we get to capture here, yes? Unless we have something better. No, I'm taking the bishop. Yep. Okay, good. Check. Okay, so this is how to get out of check the best possible way. So if we get out of check with the king, knight e7 wins our rook. So that can't be good. If we take with the rook, then he's got knight h6 check, which also doesn't look that wonderful. But on the other hand, if we ignore this, we are mated. So we have to take with something. So either way, we're losing our rook to a knight. Well, one way we're losing our rook to we're losing exchange. The other one, we're just losing a rook. So obviously rook takes g8 must be the answer. I don't see why not. So check. So here's the point. What's the best way to get out of check? Let's see. King f8 allows what? Not certain. King g7 allows what? Oh, you know, I think I might see the point to this. The point might be to actually go king g6. And when the rook when the rook is captured, the king can take the bishop. And the point here is that the knight isn't trapped. No, that's not. Well, no, that's ridiculous. Is that ridiculous? That must be ridiculous. King g6, knight takes g8, king takes bishop, knight e7. Then the knight just wanders away. Black does have this very quick pass pawn, though, especially if the bishop is gone. So, for example, if we go king to f8 and we exchange and take back, I mean, the bishop is still here. So that pawn is a bit slower. But if we go king g6, give up the rook and take the bishop, now this pawn is suddenly excessively fast, whether this knight can escape or not. You know what? I'm going to do that. I want that bishop. I don't, let's see. Yeah, I want the bishop. Be there, be there, be there. Come on, be there. Yes, and I want this. Yeah, all right. Good one. It almost tricked me there. All right. This one, looking at checks, we got one. Rook takes, of course, is going to be met by queen takes. So that's not wonderful. By the way, if rook takes and king takes, then this would have won the queen. Maybe not in the best way to win the queen. Okay, you know what? And now that we've seen that, so that was the capture, and we also have, actually, this isn't possible because we're pinned. So now we can go to threats, and already all we have to do is rearrange the order of that combination that I just mentioned, which was rook takes followed by bishop to e5. But if we go bishop e5 first and then rook takes, that should be absolutely winning. And there's no other checks. So I'm going to go bishop e5. And then I'm going to take the free queen or the queen for the bishop and win. All right. Let's see. We have a check here on queen. We can also capture here with the knight. This is interesting because if queen takes knight, we have bishop g6, which wins the queen. Knight takes f7 also threatens a disco with the queen. So that looks pretty good. Black can do a counterattack with knight takes f7, however, so we have to pay attention to that. Yeah, like knight takes f7, bishop, knight takes f4, which also hits the queen. Okay. That is something. See, I wonder. Knight takes f7, knight takes f4, knight d6 double check. Nah, that doesn't look right. See, we have bishop b5 check too, but I don't. I'd rather keep this bishop on this diagonal. Let's see. Can we can't trap this queen, can we? Is that the threat? Knight to e4. Knight to e4. The queen can back up this way. Yeah, that doesn't seem very tactical. Knight f7, knight f4. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is if we could play knight takes f7, knight takes f4, and then just trade. And when the queen captures, we can just simply go to e2. And this looks like an ongoing assault here. And the king is in terrible danger. Also, the f file being open is not in his favor. So I'm going to try that. I don't see anything else. Let's go for it. Knight takes f7. g6. Okay. I thought we could take this with the bishop on this move. That gets in the way of the queen, but it still adds, I mean, it's still an ongoing attack. Yeah, let's go for it. Well, that was it. All right, so here we're playing black. We're down a rook. Checks. Let's see. We got queen f3 check. We have queen g1 check. Queen g4 check. Queen d3 check. Queen b3 check. Okay, so of the, okay, no, this is very simple. We just simply check them and wreck them. Okay. Analyzing too much there. Sorry, guys. Maybe we can do a couple more quick ones here. Let's see, no checks. No captures. Wow, okay. No wide open position. That's it's kind of an anomaly. Let's see, so threats. So here we notice knight to d4, which threatens the queen. We have knight a5, which threatens the queen. Incidentally, it also distracts the queen away from the knight. And when we capture back, we'll be defending the knight on a5, wherever the queen decides to go. So that looks like knight a5 here. Knight to the rim. Oh, okay, so attacking the queen. So here it looks like if we just capture, they capture, we take the rook, we're attacking the knight on a8. We're threatening knight e2, resurrecting the knight, or knight takes d3. So I think we just take, and we just take, and just capture everything. This one is a worm job all the way to b5. I believe we go king e5 and slowly migrate our way over to b5. Anything else just looks like it loses. And then we get the opposition, and that's it. Here, this check looks like it leads to this check, which looks like it leads to mate. Check, check, mate. This one, we have a checkmate with the pieces that we have. Just simply capture like this, check them like this, and now we have rook h1 mate. Let's see. We have one check. Doesn't quite work. We have a capture, a capture, a capture, a capture on f2. None of those look very special. So threats. When it comes to threats, it looks like rook c1 is a nasty threat. Trying to take advantage of the back rank. Interesting. And so then if the rook, I see that if we play rook to c1 and they defend with rook to d1, then you can actually capture the queen. And when black, when the black queen is captured, then rook to d1 still leads to mate. So that's it right there. Here, okay. So here we at the very, well, let's see. Queen. Oh, okay. I didn't see rook e4. Nice move. So let's see if we capture and they capture and we take and they take that, we're up in exchange. So yeah, just take the rook and then just take the lady. Yeah, simple. Let's see, no checks. We got to capture, we got to capture, we got to capture, we got to capture. Let's see. Yeah, this queen on f3 though, that is a problem. So for example, rook takes, queen takes. And we're the ones that lose. So if we take with the pawn and queen f3 check and rook 4 g2 and knight f4, wow, looks like we're the one under attack. Let's see, fe4, queen f3, rook 4 g2. Queen e3. And if the queen wanders away, then the rook will then be able to collapse here on g7. Maybe that's it. So let's just take the rook. Let's play the only move. Well, that was it. Wow, okay. That was a lot hard. Made that a lot harder than it was. Okay, so this king looks really precariously placed. Let's see, knight e5 is met by knight takes. Knight g5 is met by king g6. And I think we run out of steam right off the bat. Captures, we have queen takes c6. And if queen takes knight e5 check, picks up a knight. And that's an exchange up end game. Do we have anything better? Queen can't attack the rook. Okay, I'm doing it. Be there, be there, be there. Yes. Okay, already up to 44. All right, so here, this is pinned, but we're protected. This isn't a king, so we're okay. All right, checks, we have none. Captures, we have one. Bishop takes bishop. That's the answer right there. If bishop takes bishop, of course, rook captures is met by queen takes, queen check. If bishop takes and queen takes, this is one of these retreating knight moves that is effective. We capture with the knight, which actually defends the d6 bishop, like so. And the rook can't take. Let's see. You would think that with this kind of attack, that the king would be over here. but it isn't. It's way over here. How interesting. All right, so our queen's under attack. Let's see, we have one check. Let's see, we have a capture. We have a capture. Let's see. Interesting thing about this capture is, oh no, that's check. Okay, so sack and the queen is out. You know, what's interesting is that we have this threat. Let's see, if h7, rook takes queen, that actually forks these two guys. I don't know if that means anything. Maybe. h7, rook takes. Then rook takes, and something's getting distracted from these guys. So maybe h7 is actually the answer. h7, rook takes h7, rook takes h7. And if queen takes g5. If rook takes queen, then rook takes queen, winning another exchange. And this bishop is horrible. I don't see anything better than that. And like I said, if h7, rook takes queen, h8 forks here and here, and queen takes bishop is mate. So let's try that. And let's take. And let's take this way. Yep, that was the answer. Ooh, the ending. Queen versus two rooks. Let's see. So check. The only check we really have is here. Rook takes, pawn takes. Probably pawn takes, actually. Let's take with the c pawn. King takes, take. That looks like a winning king and pawn endgame. Not with the a pawn, though. Let's see. So here, rook takes. If a pawn takes, king takes here, and then suddenly white's got a pass pawn of their own. And the result is not very clear. But if you take with the c pawn, there is no pass pawn, and then you could just simply capture, get out of the way, and promote. So I'm going to do that. Check, check, check. Okay. So no checks. We got a capture here. And that's it. So threats. Okay, so the last move was knight g6, which incidentally threatens the rook. I do note that the queen is centralized, which either can be a really great weapon or the queen can get crowded, as international master Georgy Orlov likes to call this the crowded queen. And this smells like a crowded queen, especially after knight to d4. Now, even though this can be captured with check, we could just simply capture back and the queen has nowhere to go. This bishop is defended. These squares are taken up, one by the knight, one by the pawn. Queen can't go to e6 because of the knight, can't go to f7 for various reasons, and everything else is defended. So I believe the answer is knight d4. And then we capture, and then we take the lady. And there goes the crowded queen. Thank you, Georgy. Now, here we go. Let's see. This looks like a very simple one. We've got a lineup of queens, and all we have to do is make a check. We do not want to check on d3 because they will capture, but we can check on g4, which can still be captured, but then the queen disappears. So check, boom. Let's see. This looks like a mating attack. Rook takes e6 check, pawn takes, queen takes, king f8, rook d8 mate. And if rook takes king f8, then rook d8 mate. And there's no other move. So let's check him, mate him. Right. Okay. So queen takes f2. So we can, of course, capture the queen, or what it looks like is that we can go for checks. Rook takes c7, king b8, rook takes b7, king a8, and now we've got windmill powers. Let's see. So that looks really nice, although our windmill bishop could be captured on any mistaken check, I suppose. So let's see. Rook c7, king b8, rook b7, king a8. Suppose we could play rook d7, check, queen takes, and then rook takes check, king up, and then we capture the queen, and again we have an exchange up endgame, also with a bunch of pawns extra. So that looks pretty good. If the king goes to b8 on rook d7, then we can capture the rook with check, king a7. Looks like I'd like to think we could make mate out of that. All right, let's go for that one. Let's not take the queen. Let's go for the king. Check, check. And I wanted to check on d7. Is there any place better? I'm going here. Yay. And let's take this one first. Check. And let's take this one second. Yay. All right. And just like that, we're at 51. So you kids at home, you can do this too. Let's see. Rook a3 forces rook a2. Is that wonderful? No, but queen takes a3 might be, but not rook takes, but queen takes. And then if king to b1, queen a1 mate. If rook over, then queen c1 mate. So, and we're not in check, so check him and mate him. Okay, so here we have a check on e8, which looks pretty good. As a matter of fact, let's follow that line right away. Queen e8, knight f8, rook h8, king h8, queen takes knight, and he can't go up to h7 because we've got a bishop here. So his only move is rook g8, and then queen h6 is checkmate. So that's fairly simple. Check, 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 check. Okay, so here we have a same color bishop endgame. White's in the train station here, but we are the ones with the tactic. So no checks. We've got one capture. And if capture's back, do we have anything special there? Do we have g5 as another breakthrough move? hg, h4. If this pawn runs, we can just walk over there and go get him. And the way that the pawns are set up, I think the king has been blocked from catching Harry there. So I think we actually solved it right there. Take, push, and that's that. All right. Let's see. One check. King takes. Other rook over. That looks really strong. King h1, queen f3 mate. That's probably it right there. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Rook takes, king takes, rook over, bishop g. Okay, no, I think that's it. Check, check, and that's that. Let's see. This would be mate in one if this weren't here. We have knight f3 check, which forces here, which then walks into disco powers. Interesting. And then we can like do a do-si-do with the knight. Knight f3, king h1, knight d4 is check. And then on king g1, knight e2 not only wins the queen, that's mate. Okay, that's really nice. Check, check, checkmate. Aha. This is one of these classic ones when you have something pinned to the king, we just simply capture with the rook. And when the rook captures, we play rook to d8 and pick up a piece on the next move. Take here, and that's that. Simple. Let's see. We have a check on h4. We've got disco checks of some kind, of the third kind. Let's see. This might be, oh, okay. I think I see it already. I think what we do is we play double check, knight to g4. And if king to f1, then knight h2 is mate because of the bishop carving in on all these squares. Knight to g4, king h4, queen h4 is mate when the knight's guarding h2. So check, mate. Very nice. Let's see. So we got a check here. We have all these worthless checks. We got a check on f3, check on d3. Many checks. The land of many checks. Let's see. So queen g1 picks up a rook. I don't know if is that so wonderful? Queen G1, king moves somewhere, queen takes A1, and I mean, have we really done anything? Oh, I get it. I think what we do is we force the king to go to a dark square and then land a bishop G5 or H4 check. So for example, queen D3, king E1, bishop H4 is mate, the diagonal mate, crisscross mate. If king C1, then bishop G5 is also a diagonal mate. So we check him and then we mate him. Yeah, simple. Okay, let's see. No checks. We've got one capture here. We've got a capture here. Both of those look bad. Okay, so threats. Well, first thing we notice is the old retreating bishop moves that attack stuff. This makes a skewer. That's a decent threat. It does make the rook weak, but queen d4 is impossible. So I don't think that matters if it's weak. So I think that's the only thing we can threaten. Aha. So let's see. Take, check, rook takes. That wins a piece. That wins a piece. Okay. Wow. And just like that, we're at 60. All right. Let's see. No checks. We've got no captures. So it's threats already. Okay. So we got a pass pawn. We have mate. Rook here is mate. So that's a big threat. We have king e5 as a threat, threatening the rook. Of those, the mate actually looks the best because if the king is forced to unblockade, then h7 is going to be awfully hard to meet. Yeah, let's go for that. Let's see, rook c7. I assume, well, he gets a free move, so let's say d4. Rook g7. I guess that isn't mate, but the idea is that on king h5 we'd have h7. That's where I thought the mate was coming in. And then on rook to d8, you have rook g8 with the interference tactic. So let's go for that tactic. Yes. Okay, so check him here, h7, rook h8. Can we set up a mating net? Can we guard this? Can we guard these? Can we guard this square? No. So h7. No, not h7. Rook g7, obviously. Rook g7, king h5. I guess we can just crawl up the board. I mean, rook g7, king h5, h7, threatening rook g8, and on rook h8 we have g6 threatening rook g8 again, and we'll just crawl our way to victory. Let's try that. Check, go, go, and then the idea was to go like this, and that was that. All right. All right, so this time we're playing black. So yeah, again, you always want to look at the instructions here because we might actually think we're playing white and suddenly, hey, I want to play, check or something. But we have to get the moves right. All right, so here we can promote. We don't have any checks. We don't have any captures. So we start looking at threats. We promote, rook has to take, bishop has to take, the pawn can try to queen, and we can just come back. Let's see, do we have anything better than that? We don't have an interference move. We can't put the bishop in the way and promote behind it. So I don't think we have anything better. Gimme, gimme. Oh, he doesn't try to promote. Oh, okay, so I get it. We have to not only stop this pawn, but also prevent white from taking this pawn. So this way we can still win. If white gets to take this, and it's a draw, at least. Or I guess what could be said is that only white can win when they've got pawns, although that is a fairly easy draw. So let's see. So if we do it with a king. King up, king in, king here. It'll take some work, but it looks like that what black's winning pretty easily. Anything else, white's just playing d7, bishop b6, king e4, and winning the pawn. So I'm going to use the king. Be there, be there, be there. Yes, good. All right, so here we're down a piece. We've got one check. We've got a couple captures. Let's see, queen check, rook check. Doesn't seem to do anything special there. Let's see, the bishop is hanging, but we really can't get at it. A threat we can make is pawn c5. Well, yeah, but then queen d5 check. I mean, nah. I wonder. Queen. Yeah, normally it'd be something like rook to e1, and then if the rook takes, you can win the queen. But of course, the bishop is here, so that tactic doesn't quite work, obviously. Oh, I get it. It's these guys. It's a skewer. What we do is we play rook to d8 because this queen is pinned to the king, so we can actually play this move. And when queen takes queen, we do not take the queen. We take the rook first with check, king up, and then again we'll get an exchange up endgame. So we're starting to see this theme in quite a bit of these puzzles. The liquidation into an exchange up endgame. So RD8, and then here he just gives up the queen. So that's easy and good. Okay, so all right, so no checks, no captures. So we're again already down to threats. Notice here that again we've got a crowded queen. So if we attack this queen, where is she going? She's going to h4, and then bishop g3 looks like that traps the queen. Anywhere else is already taken up. So let's do it. Boom, boom, wins, easy. All right, so this one looks like bishop d6 is a check that is very nice. Let's see, bishop d6, g3. I guess that's one way to do it. Perhaps the trick to the puzzle is that we actually do it with the queen. So this way, when you take the queen, we actually exchange queens, then pick up the rook and have a very easily winning endgame rather than just winning the rook. Also, I notice on bishop d6, g3, that after you capture the rook, there might be some. Oh, there it is. Queen. I think I see it. Queen e7, and then you can play queen e8 or f8 check and win the bishop back. So that makes it unclear. So I think that is the puzzles that we have to trade queens first. Be there, be there. Check, check, take. Okay, good. So that one required some precision. All right. Okay, so here we've got a check on e6, a check on e8, and both of those are interesting because it forks the knight. So that is an interesting detail. Right. This rook is badly placed. This rook is wonderfully placed. We like him. This knight is okay. So in fact, maybe we can actually use that. So queen to e6 check forces rook f7 to defend this, right? So then if we force the rook to here and then take on d6, that looks like that we're picking on the rook on f7 really nicely. And also making the rook go back to f7 means that they can't play rook g5 check, which it looks like black's trying to land. Although I don't know if that's wonderful or not. So let's see, check. King can't go to F8 because of mate, and if H8, then you could take the knight. This check leads to King F1. And that looks pretty good. Queen E6, Rook F7, Knight takes D6. Black could play Queen G5, but again, White could just play King F1 and be totally safe and is losing material. So let's try that. Be there, be there, be there. Yes, and let's take this one. Yeah, okay, good. Let's see. So we got to check here, check here. All the others are insane. We've got to check here. Which doesn't look that bad. That forces King H6, so that's a good step in the right direction when you're forcing something. And no way to threaten the queen, so now everything else is defended. So let's take a look at BD4. BD4, King H6. So White has anything special there? I don't think so. Okay, so let's ignore Bishop D4 for a second. Let's see. So Queen D7. This isn't possible. F6 is fraught with danger now on Bishop to D4, King to G5, and that's probably not really as pleasant. A king floating around in space like that. Queen D7, King G8. We haven't made any progress there. Let's see, how about, I'm going to move like Bishop G5. Threatening to threaten, I guess. No, that isn't, it doesn't feel right. Well, it either has to be a check or the movement of the dark bishop. I mean, that's pretty clear. Let's see. Oh, well, let's go back to Bishop D4 for a second. King H6. Suddenly I notice this move, Queen F6, trying to dominate this bishop on F8. And then Queen F6 has a threat of Queen takes F8. It also has a threat possibly of Queen H4, and again, harassing the king from different angles. That looks really threatening. It does win the bishop back too. So let's try that. Be there, be there, be there. I don't see anything else. Oh, that was correct. So my idea here is Queen F6. The queen can't defend the bishop on the F file here. So let's do it. Hey, and that was that. Oh, wow. Got that one too. All right, let's see. So we got a check, which looks actually immediately crushing. We also have another check that looks immediately crushing too. So we have to decide which one of those is better. So Rook takes, only moves Rook G7, King to F6, King H8, and this leads to Arabian mate. So let's do it. And we're not in check and we're not pinned or anything. So let's do it. Take, and not Rook takes Rook, but Knight F6 check, followed by this, which is the Arabian mate. That's a nice one. Okay, do we have the clearance? Or I guess, was this be the in-between move? Or, yeah, I guess it would. So we want to play Queen H2, but in between, we want to throw in Rook H7, which is a check. And the reason for this is on King takes H7, we want to play Queen H2 check. But then King G8. Okay, so we can't quite do that. Almost can do that. If the king was forced to go to G7, then Queen H6, King G8, That doesn't lead to any. What am I doing? That leads to nothing. Forget that, everybody. Forget that. Let's see. So the check isn't good. This check isn't good. This check isn't good. Capture here is not good. Capture here just allows a trade of queens or the loss of a rook, which both lead to nothing. So we have to make a threat. So the biggest threat we see here, of course, is just queen h2 immediately. I don't see anything wrong with that. This is mate. Okay, let's do it. Okay, fine. Okay, let's see. This is one of these things because the queens are lined up on each other. What we want to do is move this knight and make it check. And the way that we do this is we check him first. And now we make a check. Now, obviously, we don't check on G5 because he takes on G5. What we do is we check on F6 and then pick up the queen. Here we're in check and our king and queen are being forked. So our first move should be obvious, right? And then a pin. Okay, so it's a desperado tactic, right? We could take the queen, but our queen, so we don't have any checks. We can take on d4. They could take on d7, and then we're forced to bring the rook back. And then we end up in an end game where we're up 2 pawns and have like passers galore. So that's got to be good. I don't really see anything better. Yeah, simple. Okay. Let's see, a check on e3. Nothing more. We've got a take on e5, but it's defended a bunch of times. And that's it. So again, we're into threats. So big threat we could make is on g2. We could play bishop h3 or f3, threaten mate. What else could we threaten? We could play rook to d2, threatening the bishop and possibly some attack on g2. I kind of like that more because it takes away any queen f2 resources to defend himself. Like, for example, bishop f3, queen f2, or bishop h3, queen f2. Rook d2 takes that away. In fact, rook d2, and if the bishop moves to attack the rook, we could then play this attack, and it might be massively hard to defend the g2 pawn. Or here, whichever one is better. Let's try that. Okay, come on, be there, be there, be there. Yes. Okay, so now we could just simply trade rooks and win the bishop and have a 2-bishop versus rook endgame. That looks really nice. Do we have anything better than this? I don't think so. All right. Wow, so we're in check. All right, so the obvious way to get out of check is to take with the pawn. Queen g3, king f8. The bishop holds on to h8. So we could probably do that. Let's see, pawn takes is attempting to trap the queen. Kind of a tricky one. Let's see, pawn takes. Maybe we could even sack our queen on d5. Kind of a weird tactic. I guess we end up getting 3 pieces. We get two knights and a rook for the queen. And suddenly when our king starts moving to e7, we'll actually be safe. And these 2 rooks on the d file might be really nice. So I'm thinking about doing that. Pawn takes, queen takes, and just play the position down a queen, but looks like a pretty reasonable position. Well, let me look at that. Let's see. Pawn takes, queen takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen h5. Queen h5 barely even threatens anything. All right, let's do it. Be there, be there, be there. Oh. Okay. So what is he threatening here? Check, here, take. That's his threat. Okay. So something's got to be done here. Rook h8 is out. Let's see, we've got to check on c1. We've got to check on d4. Could sack the exchange. Nah, you can't even do that. Sack the exchange, queen h6, king g8. Pawn takes rook. And things are getting distracted. Okay, so this is a serious problem here. Let's see. Can we do something with the bishop? Bishop g5 actually guards h6. Queen h7, king f8. Oh no, queen h8 mate. Bleh. Bleh. Okay, fine. Well, wait a minute. What happens if we just retreat? And if check on h6, we just retreat. And I think we end up a piece ahead. I think that's the answer. I think we play king f8. And we play bishop g7, and we set up a little fortress that's known from the King's Indian defense. When you put your king on f8 and bishop on g7, a lot of times you can defend even against tripling against the h file. I'm going to do that. Here we go. Be there, be there, be there. Yes. All right. Thank you, king. All right. Let's see. We got to check here, check here. Useless. We got to capture here. Which doesn't look that useless. Bishop takes, queen takes. That looks like it wins a piece. Rook takes, bishop takes looks interesting, although it doesn't look like it wins anything. Also, it allows queen h3 check possibly. Maybe not. Maybe queen g3, just queen g3. So let's see, bishop takes hits the queen. Bishop takes. And then I would take with the queen. I don't see anything else. All right, let's do it. Be there, be there, be there. Yes. When he checks. Aha, so he really wants this guy. Okay, so if I just move my king, rook takes. Oh, I get it. I can play bishop to e6 here. The rook will defend the bishop now. And if bishop takes bishop, we just simply capture back, queen takes, and then king b8. And black's still up a bishop. So that's, yeah, simple and good. Okay, oh, this looks like a center counter. I believe the tactic here has to do with the disco. So the question is, what's the best disco? My guess it's knight b5. Knight b5 threatens knight d6 check, picking up the bishop. Pawn can't take because it's pinned. I was right. Okay, so here we got to check here. Nothing more. We got capture here, capture here. We do have a capture here on e5. Capture here on e5. and nothing more. So let's see, threats. Well, knight takes e5 is a capture and a threat. There's f4 maybe. So let's see. Wait a minute. That's interesting. Queen takes e5, threatening this. Queen takes e5. Knight takes e5 threatens the knight, and the knight cannot retreat. And if the knight goes to b7, then rook to d7 actually traps the knight. How about that? That's interesting. Frankly, I don't see really anything else. Let's do it. Be there, be there, be there. Yeah, okay. And then this, I just wanted to take the horsey. Oh, and there it is. So I got 75. So I got that one wrong. What happened there? Queen takes e5. So the best move was queen takes queen. Knight takes queen, knight f6, and the knight is in fact trapped. So it was that theme, but I didn't want. I just wanted to take the knight right away. Oh, because I get mated. Oh, I did not see that factor. Oh, very, very terrible. Very terrible. All right. Well, anyway, that was fun. We'll do another one of these later on. Hope that was, as fun as the first one. That was good. This has been Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School. Again, we're doing second edition of the puzzle practice, and we'll see you guys on the next one.